And I wanted to be a person where I worked, lived, and worshiped in my community. I wanted to show other young people how to be a part of your community, because that's where the power is.
We've recently had some things that happened that struck my heart and will change the way that I will forever do this work.
Well, I'm an Army veteran. I end up getting out the military, and I grew up in Alabama, but I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Grew up in East Cleveland, Shaw High School graduate, and so I came back to Cleveland because I knew that my siblings were having children, and I knew I wasn't going to have any children, so I came back to assist with that and be a part of their lives. And in 2008, I came back like in 2007, 8-ish type time frame, moved back from Fort Hood, Texas. And I was coming down this street, 79th, to go to a church over here, Morning Star, I think it's called, or I know Reverend C.J. Matthews is the pastor of the church I was trying to go to. And I kept passing this house. And I was going to a meeting to meet Dr. Cornel West and Tavis Smiley. They had just written a book called Covenant with Black America, and they were going to be there. So I wanted to meet them, get my book signed. And in that Covenant with Black America, it talked about how we can better our community. And their slogan was, if you make Black America better, you make all America better. And so they're just talking about the atrocities and the things that have gone on in America concerning Black people. And so they was teaching us how to become, or pretty much to do the principles of Kwanzaa, the Nguzo Saba, like to be business owners, take care of your property, pay your taxes, that type of thing, and just be one in the community. So every time I would pass this way to go to the church, I would look over at this house and I would say, that's my house, but the house was gunshot. And in this property where we're at right now, there was huge mountains of dirt and debris. And I couldn't believe that the city left it like that. But I just kept saying, the house just kept calling to me. So I would go to those meetings, and then I started taking other people to the meetings. And every time I passed by, I said, that's my house. And people say I was crazy. And I said, you'll see, I'm going to get that house. So I ended up being brave one day, and I came over here to try to find out who owned the house. The house was just, like I said, gunshot or whatever. Long story short, I went on the Cuyahoga County auditor's website, and I found the address. The address was my birth date. And I was like, wow. So at the time, I was working down at a school called Marion Sterling. I was teaching military drill, and I was putting children in after-school programs. And I met this gentleman by the name of Andy Batten. He had this program called the Heaven Train, where he would come. His ministry had this bus, and he would travel around to all the projects or housing authorities, and he would teach children about Christ. And the children would tell me, you need to meet Reverend Batten. And Reverend Batten would say, well, and then the children would tell him that they need to meet me. So we met one day, and he asked me, what was I doing in this community? And I told him, I said, I want to do gardening, and I wanted to be a person where I worked, lived, and worshiped in my community. I wanted to show other young people how to be a part of your community, because that's where the power is. If you live here, but you worship way over there, you still not being connected. If I live here, but I work over in somebody else's community, I'm still taking the resources out of my community. And I learned those things when I was a part of NLI, Neighborhood Leadership Institute. Shout out and RIP to Jackie Gilliam, who was one of my teachers, who taught us about living, working, and worshiping in your community. So here I am, a young person at the time, 2008. I'm going to these meetings. I was in NLI, and I'm working with young people, and that's what I really just wanted to do. I just wanted to be a good neighbor and the person who helped with the resources and receive resources in my community. Because we know if you don't have all those things, you don't have your church, you don't have your place of employment, you don't have all the amenities that other communities have, then you don't really have a community. You just have a neighborhood. So I wanted to be a part of that, good thing that was going on. So I met Reverend Batten, and he was like, what do you need help with? I said, well, I got this house. It's gunshot, don't have no windows, this, that, and the other. And he said, well, come down to my church. It was like in a place called Circleville. And he said, I want you to get up and tell people about, in the congregation, about living and working, the importance of living, working, and having everything you need in your community. So I did. I got up on the pulpit and I told my story of how I wanted to live, work, and worship in my community. And an angel donor paid the house off. This angel donor wrote a check, paid the house off, and he sent people, that congregation sent people here to help me put the siding on the house, put a roof on the house. They brought children up here and helped me gutted the house out. And until today, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who the angel investor was because he wanted to remain anonymous. And I was like, oh my God. So from there, on the other side of this house, it was an empty lot. And this side still had the dirt, mounds of dirt in it. So I heard about an organization called Neighborhood Connections, and I got a grant with some of my neighbors to put in a garden over there. Then my mother got sick. She got diagnosed with a brain tumor. So then I had to kind of like let that go and help take care of my mother. Plus I was still working down at Marion Sterling with the children. So a couple years passed, and then I came back down to my home. Then I pursued this. It was a problem with people walking by, throwing trash everywhere. That's like one of the major things in this intersection or in our neighborhoods, period. There's like no trash cans. So people walking by, they're throwing out their trash. They're driving by, get to the stop sign, throw out their trash. So then I said, let me start coming out here cleaning it up. So I started cleaning up the trash, and I was like, what else can I do? Let me start beautifying it. So then I started beautifying the neighborhood, and then I noticed there was tires everywhere. So then I just went around, I just started collecting the tires, and then I met someone who told me about Ohio State Extension. So then I learned about the Master Gardening Program and how I can, beautify the community and get neighbors together and volunteers to do a garden. So hence, that's why my garden is called the Tire Garden. And so that's how I got started with that. And so we take tires from the community, and then we try to put flowers in them and just try to beautify the area. Unfortunately, we had some setbacks this year. One of my neighbors that was a part of the Tire Garden that lived across the street over there, he died. Then, his wife, she had got COVID, and that was one of my volunteers. Then I had another volunteer that moved. And then now with all the gun violence and everything, some of the people just don't want to be down here or come outside or work. Mostly when we do the gardening, we try to do it early morning or like when the sun goes down, because, you don't want to wet your plants up and then they're scorched from the sun. But a lot of people now are afraid to be outside. A matter of fact, there was a meeting yesterday at Antioch Baptist Church for the Concerned Pastors Alliance. They are talking about their members that don't even want to come to church or don't even want to come outside to like Bible study because of all the violence that's been going on in the community. On May 27, me standing right outside on my own property, I ended up getting shot in the leg from some people that was just randomly shooting. And people ask me, Lee, what are you going to do? You are you going to stay here or are you going to leave? And right now it's an inner conflict inside myself. And that conflict is, do I stay or do I leave? And I just reminded of a scripture in the Bible that says, when the righteous are in power, the people rejoice, And I'm thinking the wrong people are in power, whether it be in state level, local levels, or whether it be the head of your own household or whomever. It's like, If everybody that's good lead a community, it's going to be total darkness and total chaos. So for myself, I didn't realize how much of an impact I had on this community until the people in the community saw me walking around with this cane. And so many people have been stopping, some I know and some I don't know, who have just been watching me transform this community. And they're like, what you doing with that cane? And then I'm able to tell the story. And most of the people who see me with the cane, they call me the skate lady. Because on my street, I skate in front of my house. I play golf in that empty field over there, on my street. They'll see me out here playing my drums. I play the drums. I have African drums. I play my drums. I do all kind of stuff out here. They see me out here in this garden, and most people are hunking. It's like light. I try to be light here on this corner. And if the light goes out, it's going to be total darkness. And so I worry about other people, that don't have no light, And I'm like, what is my commitment? All from all that I have learned, going to those meetings, Black Covenant with Black America, going to NLI, going to Neighborhood Connections. What is my commitment from all that I learned? Do I abandon all of that? Or do I stay and try to help, to bring more light, to shed more light? So that's the inner conflict that I'm dealing with right now. If you don't take stock in your community, then anything can happen in your community. For instance, I was watching the news yesterday, and I forget what community it was in, but in this community, they're getting ready to put a new fire station, but connected to the fire station is going to be a burn pit. So the residents came out and there was like, we don't want that in our community. And then the fire marshal, he came out. He was like, oh, it's not going to be that bad, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we're not going to let you come in and do stuff to us. And then afterwards, you want to say, well, we apologize. We didn't know. No, the people have got to be able to know what's going on in their community and be able to voice and stop things before they happen. So that's why that is important. If you look around, this is what I call the interior of Fairfax. All around on the outside of Fairfax, they're building up. Cleveland Clinic is building. They're putting in a new grocery store up there. They're building they're always building all around us. But sometimes I think that the powers that be, they forget about the interior. The interior is where the people live, And so help us to build as well. The people are truly the soil. The soil is a living thing, And if you don't help that soil to matriculate or whatever, and then it just becomes dirt, So the people also, as the outside has to build up, the inside has to build up as well. If not, then you're going to have blight. You're going to have people just running amok through here. And then eventually this is going to triculate out into what you think you're building out there. So it has to all build up together.
My name is Ebonie, Ebonie, Randall, Randle, Joyner, Joiner, and this is Shalom and Tranquility Community Garden. This started on an ask from Tanisha Velez in 2019. We were participants in Councilwoman Santana's SEED program. Don't ask me what SEED stand for. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. But I remember it had to do with the empowering of the women of Ward 14. And that was a life-changing program for myself. And Tanisha had passion for these things that she used to bring to class that I thought was grass. I'd never seen anything that looked like it. But she had a passion for microgreens, and she shared that passion with me. And throughout our journey together, at a certain point, she asked me to become a garden leader. And I did not know what that meant. Consequently, my life has changed on an ask. So Shalom and Tranquility's install took place on June 6, 2020. That was our install date. I'll always remember that date because as a legacy resident here in this community, I live just on the next street over. I've lived in that house off and on since I was 10 years old, and I'm almost 50. June the 6th, the Black Lives Matter marched down Archwood Avenue. And about that time of day, it was late in the day, and it was myself and just a few other volunteers here. And I could actually feel the palpitations in the earth as we were planting before I could see or hear anything. And I didn't even know that they were coming down the street. And the closer they got, the more like, I don't know, like there was something on the inside of me that began to shift. And when I could clearly hear them, I ran down to Archwood, but they were already down Fulton. And it was at that time that I knew that this was it. What I was doing was it, because I was literally transformed to when I was 10 years old being called a nigger in this, what was then predominantly white neighborhood. But I was affirmed that I didn't hear Black Lives Matter. I heard Ebonie matters. And I knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing. It has history, but on the ask, when we first put the paperwork into OSU, we first applied for the lot that I could directly see behind my kitchen when I wash dishes. And we got turned down because it was bound up in some legalities, right? Some tax legalities. And Tanisha was like, you got to walk around your neighborhood and find it, because they said no. Otherwise, they're going to send you on miles. And I'm like, that ain't going to get it. And so when you live in blight, this is my testimony. When you live in blight, you don't really see it, right? So I never came, and this is shame, because I never came beyond my fence, a boundary, not even to cut my grass behind my fence. So there was no ownership beyond what I could see, which was my fence. So I started walking and I seen this. And at this time it was couches and tires, you name it. Morgan remembers, it was a mess. It was a mess. But, and it was a pathway trudged through all that mess. I mean, we had weeds like sky high, not sky high, but like almost as tall as myself. And it was just a trudge through pathway. So people were using this. And I didn't know that this space had history. And it had history as a Reimagine Cleveland project. And the sign was still up. There was even a placard to a neighbor on this tree and all of that. So we applied for this space. We were approved for this space, but even before we got the approval, we started to clean it up. So that is other than being a legacy resident, that is the heart appeal to this. Oh, you know what? The highlights far outweigh the non-highlights. And we have had so many highlights. I think one of our greatest highlights is our relationships that we have had to become intentional about cultivating with community. I think our greatest highlights is our Super Garden Kids program and our, because we've cultivated green space leaders through our Super Garden Kids, because they've been on this mission with Miss Ebb from the beginning. Our senior engagement is growing and increasing. We have people who actually really want to be here, you know, as you've seen. We have our partnerships with various community organizations. King's Church is our greatest partnership, and they've been on this journey since the beginning. Mother to Mother, Connecting for Kids, the Cleveland Rotary Club. I think the greatest highlight has been cultivating relationships in and around the community. Hold on. Highlight. It just came to me. Last year, the kids put on a talent show on this stage, and that was, as they would say, bussin'. That I didn't get to see any of it. I seen none of it. All I heard was the hype, right? Like everybody was hyped. So Wall Street West was our host. DJ Doc and his crew came over from the Refresh Collective. The greatest highlight was we had a lot of dads and uncles, and it was men were everywhere cheering the kids on, and none of the kids in the Super Garden Kids signed up to perform. None of them. They wanted this. Nobody signed up to perform. So it was kids outside of the neighborhood who came and they started to perform. And then the kids from the neighborhood, even kids who just came from, and I was so glad that I got extra prizes because there was no big winners. Like you took the risk. Everybody was a risk taker. Everybody was rewarded for being a risk taker. So the most recent highlight, and we're doing it again. Only thing is our program always collides with Fresh. And so, but it's a big thing over here, and then I hightail it to Fresh after all of this is over. When I first started this, I thought that Shalom and Tranquility would be a bridge between special needs families like mine and typical families, right? You remember Morgan. That was my thing. Like we would be a bridge in community between atypical families and typical families. And what I found was we started this is that we just needed to be a bridge in community. And I am a action-oriented person, and I didn't go outside of my comfort zone, which was like knocking on doors. I'm cool with dropping a flyer, but that interpersonal thing, like that, the introvert in me is like, I don't want to talk to you, right? And so last year, every year the challenges have become greater and greater. This is our 4th season. And so last year we had me not communicating to the adults in the community, even though their kids are here, they weren't here, right? We had legacy shareholders. That's what we call our senior citizens here in the community. We had legacy shareholders here, and we had youth here. We didn't have parents and guardians that in between, like my age here. And so that last year was the challenge. And it got real, like Project Ebb, King Kennedy Ebb I was ready to be about it. And I wasn't even about to call my people. It just got to that point where it was just like a lot of verbal contact, right? And so I had to humble myself. The great thing is that we have people who volunteer here from outside of the community who have the skills that I don't possess for like mediation. So we had a mediator that had to mediate situation between a neighbor and myself, neighbors and myself, so that we can continue to work together. Consequently is we've been able to, that relationship piece, I'm always going to stand on that. I haven't done this thing 100. I haven't. And I've made mistakes, and I've had to humble myself. And I've had to apologize and go and right my wrong, which is and I'm still working on it, is being a better communicator outside of my comfort zone. So not using social media all the time, I'm still not good at knocking on them doors. Like it's easy for me to put a A-frame out there and be like, come, but people want to be talked to. Without community, there is no project. There is no work. Without my neighbors, without the community outside of Brooklyn Center, there is no project or no work. The work of Shalom and Tranquility, like I have a job, but this is my work. And the work is really to bring the common unity. If y'all know me, if anybody has followed me, I'm always going to talk about the common unity, because we don't have community if we don't have a common unity. We've recently had some things that happened that struck my heart and will change the way that I will forever do this work, that I will forever be a neighbor to. And one thing is that, like, I ain't no sucker. It's a lot of suckers out here. Like, it's a lot of people with big guns that's some suckers out here. I seen it with my own eyes. And honestly, to be very transparent with you, was like, fear has governed my life for so long that I would be afraid to approach what I perceive as the enemy. And the greater the levels of this work go, Julian, hey B, you can come over here. You ain't gotta. The greater the levels, come over here, B. The greater the levels, the greater the devils, and I could feel attacked, and sometimes I do feel attacked, and sometimes I take it personally. But I understand that the work is greater than me. The work is greater than my children. The work is greater. Come on. I'm sorry. What's your name?
Brandon.
Brandon what?
Brandon Homecheck.
Brandon, these are my friends. Scoot over closer to Miss Ebb so you can get in. Brandon is he's my neighbor. He's my friend. He's a super garden kid. And he's our number one security. So he's going to make sure that, he's going to always be the greeter and know that you're here. But I'm sorry, I got sidetracked.
Because I've been here for let's say 2 years, probably.
About 2-3 years. Yeah.
2-3 years. And I have got connected to this garden a lot because I've been here so much. And this means a lot to me because we do a lot of stuff here. This is mostly something where you can work, but it's mostly for fun. But then when we get to work, we mostly build stuff.
In the neighborhood, is there any place like this in the neighborhood that you can go to?
No.
Why am I pushing through? Here sits a perfect reason why I sit through, why I push through, why I pray through, why I endure hardship like a good soldier in Yahushua HaMashiach. I remember in 2019, my sister passed away from COVID. Let me get it was 2020. 2020? Okay. 2020, my sister passed away. And I just remember I turned to what's familiar, which was, first it was a little bit of beer to just go to sleep and take the edge off of my emotions. And then that little bit turned into a whole can. And then I used to be an avid smoker of herbs. And that became a stronghold for me also. But I remember being in my room and vividly hearing, what are you willing to risk for this work? And I did not know at the time what I was risking. I was just going about the motions, of doing it. And it became almost mundane. Get up, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, doing that. And then it was in 2020 that I found that most of these kids and their parents can't read. And then so that was a burden on my heart. What am I gonna do? I'm a doer. I'm a fixer. How are we gonna fix this? I really wish Shalom and Tranquility was about growing food. It's not. Really, that's my therapy. That's my therapy. The losses in June, my sister died in December 2020. One of our founding gardeners died in early January 2021. My cousin was murdered in January 2021. It was just compound loss, right? And I still was pushing through. And the years have become almost one in my brain between 2020 and 2023. But in July of 2021, I lost my you're not supposed to have favorite relatives, right? But I lost two of my favorite relatives on the same day. Both my uncle was in a one uncle was here in Cleveland and he was in a motorcycle accident. It was a head-on collision and he died. Then I lost my star uncle who lived in another state. And that knocked me. That knocked me. And I thought it knocked me to my knee. Maybe it did knock me to my knees. And then I stated before, the greater the levels, the greater the devil. So the adversary began to touch my house where I live. And that really knocked sales. My sales went. I was already on my knees, but it was like the wind was snatched right here. My throat was just, and I did not know how to handle that. But I continued to do the work. Grief had beaten me down. Grief had beaten me down, and I did not know that I was in grief. I got a new therapist. I started to learn how to pivot during change. I didn't know how to pivot during change, and I had so much change taking place. Change in my home, change in my work, change in the job. And I had to learn the skills of the pivot, which doesn't come easy for some of us. And it didn't come easy for me. And I had to learn that skill, right? So fast forward to today, a few weeks ago, I for a few months now, I guess I've been walking the road, not guess. In hindsight, I know that I have been walking the road of a death doula on this journey with another uncle who passed away recently. And it was a beautiful experience. It's an experience that I never thought that I would have, to watch somebody who was ready to die just literally give up the ghost, the spirit. And it was beautiful. But then here recently, the other day, I witnessed a man who did not willingly give up his ghost. I seen a man murdered, and that struck my soul. It struck my soul. I've been crying every day since this happened. I did not know this man at all, but I was with this man when he took his final breath. And that was just like, to have that experience from a few weeks ago, to be with a man who willingly said, I'm ready to die, and gave up his spirit, to watch a man fight to keep his spirit. I will forever be changed. And I know that we experience black on black crime often, and it has become commonplace to see it, but I cannot allow this to be commonplace where I live. I'm the mother of a black son, and I don't want, this person may not have been like an upright citizen. That's none of my business. But to watch another black man kill another black man right before my eyes, and to watch this man and be with him, and he was alive as long as I was with him and encouraging him to stay alive. And when I gave him over to those that are paid to save lives, and he didn't make it, something happened inside of Eb. Something happened inside of Eb. Eb as the mother, Eb as the community leader, Eb as a cultivator, Eb as a farmer, and the cycle of life and the seasons of life, I'll forever be changed. And so I guess it's a message in this for me. And I'm still grieving. It's fresh. I'm still hurting. But I can't allow the counter forces, the evil forces, to win, because the reality is these people didn't even live here. So now I share with you that fear used to have a grip on me. I cannot allow fear to come in here and stop me, because people are watching me. They're watching me. And so I can't be afraid. So I have to encourage those to not be afraid. Is that B? Listen, I want to say thank you in allowing me to share this story. oftentimes is the voice. I'm glad that B was here to share in it, because I get tired of hearing myself talk. I have to always remember why I'm doing this. You kind of hit on it, but I have to ask myself, especially lately, like, have you got to remember your why? And my why often changes. Where we started off just being a bridge between typical and atypical families, and it's like, you just need to be a bridge. And then it was, okay, illiteracy is an issue. Generational illiteracy is an issue. Then a lack of just basic knowledge of food is an issue. I know that I cannot meet every need. And I say all that to say, like, I was following that road of popularity and I didn't even know it. So I had to humble myself once again, backpedal a little bit, examine my own heart. And as things began to occur, it's like, I cannot follow the path, how they say that, the path that's frequently traveled. I got to take the other road. And shalom and tranquility is the other road. When I talk about the common unity, this is not about everybody know who Eb is. They know the work. Do you know it took 3 seasons to get one parent to come out here and help us clean this alley? That's a great victory. That's a great victory. But we have refined our mission. I spent from November until January just refining the work of shalom and tranquility and what it means for me personally, me as a steward. And when I turn this over, because I will turn this work over to someone else, that they won't have to figure it out. The mission will be written and they'll just add to it. And so with that, I think I will bid you a shalom. And friends, you are welcome here anytime. This is a public space. And don't be stealing my watermelons.